Alright, hey guys, what's up? 8-Byte Brian here, and I wanted to bring you my review of The Last Jedi. Now, for any of those of you who may have not seen the movie yet, I will give you a warning. Spoilers ahead in advance. Now, if somehow you haven't seen The Last Jedi by now, you probably aren't aware of the massive conflict going around between fans and just everyone who's seen the movie. Rian Johnson's really split the fan base with this on this installment, being a 2.5-hour film, being, I believe, the longest Star Wars film now to date. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's gotten a critic score of 91%, but a fan score of 49%, and on other websites, it's gotten scores as low as 39%, which really splits the fan base and really wonders how on earth can it be so split from the critics reviewing it at 90%, giving it certified fresh, but the fans, the people young and old who have come to love this franchise, that's the viewpoint that I take away from the most. In other words, not saying it was completely horrible, but definitely that there's a conflict of interest between the critics and from people who are just regular people and have regular, ordinary opinions about the movie. So I tend to go with the fan reviews. Now, with that being said, let's get started. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, you'll notice that the movie starts out with Poe Dameron, and he is talking from his X-Wing fighter, and he is talking to General Hux, and there's this give and take scene where they're waiting for, I don't remember if it's a shield generator or if they're waiting for like a warp drive to power up. I think they're actually trying to take out shields from one of their super star destroyers, and he's pretending like he doesn't have a signal between him and General Hux, and he's like, seriously, he's like, can he hear me? He's like, can you hear me? And I'll admit, I definitely genuinely laughed when that scene happened, but I thought it was really ridiculous because that type of humor is just not what we've come to see in any of the Star Wars films. I mean, aside from, I guess, silly stuff like Jar Jar and things like that. But most of the humor that you've seen over the years between Han or Luke, primarily Han, he's been the main source of humor, and Ewan McGregor in the prequels. But it's just been catchy, snappy one-liners. It's never been a reference before where, like, oh, do I have a bad cell phone signal? That one of the main characters is getting trolled. So that just kind of goes into a weird area to where, the first films were written with reactional comedy, reacting to situations, not an over drawn out scene that's unbelievable in a time where you would have technology to where you would never have a loss in communications, when you could have, laser swords and star destroyers and space fighters. Like, you're really expecting me to believe that you lost the connection? I mean, when you have all this other unbelievable technology thousands of years ahead of its time. So that joke didn't seem to fit. So right off the bat, that set me off in a bad way. My other biggest concern is when Rey they go back to Octu and she's handing Luke the lightsaber. You can see that she's very stressed out and very concerned, and she hands him the lightsaber, and Luke is looking at her with a lot of concern, and then he just cheekily whoop just flips the lightsaber over his shoulder, and that's absurd. I get the whole thing with the plot movement with Luke failing Ben and, Luke delving into areas of the Grey Jedi, and that's totally believable. I totally get that. I can totally be on board with Luke, cutting himself off from the Force and, giving up and being discouraged and things like that. I think that's a really believable, plot point, and shows some sides of Luke we've never seen before, show some interesting character development. But I don't think we would have ever seen him just cheekily throw away his father Anakin's lightsaber. At the end of Return of the Jedi, he sat there and cried with his father as his father died. And seeing his lightsaber being a representation of not only the first lightsaber he used when he was really young, but the fact that it was his father's as well, there's no way. Like, when Ray would have handed that to him, the proper reaction is he probably should have cried or trembled a little bit in disbelief with what he was holding, because otherwise that makes the entire struggle of the first three films, 4, 5, and 6, it makes it absolutely pointless of trying to turn his father back, that he cares about his father, seeing the good in his father. It makes everything that happened in the original series worthless. It's like he might as well, with flicking that lightsaber off the cliff, he might as well have said, oh yeah, there was totally no point in me, trying to save the galaxy from the evil empire and bring my father back to the light. So that just doesn't make any sense. Luke would have never, ever, 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 ever done that. Some other issues that I had with the scenes, with Octu. Obviously, that crazy creature that Luke's getting the milk from. I really didn't have a problem with the creature itself, but it's just, I didn't get what purpose that served in the movie. Like, I understand it's making Luke seem more like a crazy old hermit that just lives by himself and isn't really a Jedi anymore. But I mean, seriously, Ryan, you feel that's important, but then at another point that I'll go into in a minute, there's so many other important issues that you could have replaced that stupid issue with and worked on other character development. So I thought that was really unnecessary. I really didn't care also when you saw the Porgs on the island, because they just immediately reminded me of Minions, and it's just cutesy Disney BS just to sell dolls and toys, and they serve no function. They gave Chewbacca a funny moment, and aside from that, why did one need to be in the Millennium Falcon? It didn't. They're stupid, they're CGI, they're annoying as hell. So again, I would have rather focused on maybe Chewie going up, instead of just waiting down there, just debating whether or not he's going to eat a Porg, talk to Luke and explain, hey, Han's gone. That would have been much more better use of the time in the 2.5 hours in the movie, instead of just putting in pointless drivel. So that was a big problem that I had. Surprisingly, I didn't have a big problem with Luke when he was slapping Rey on the hand with that reed. I actually kind of thought that was funny because it reminded me of like Yoda a little bit. It was a little over the top, but all right, I'll let you slide on that one. I did have a big problem, however, though, with Rey going down into the cave, and this ties into something else as well, to where she just looks at herself in the mirror. And there's no answer down there. And then skipping ahead briefly here, when she's in Snoke's throne room and is fighting with Kylo Ren and fighting the Praetorian guards, that he tells you, your parents were nobody. They were, drunks. They were junkers. And I do think a lot of rumors have been going around. I think in 9 we're going to see that's a ploy from Ren, and that he was just saying that to manipulate Rey to come to the dark side. But that's one of the recurring problems I had with this movie, is that you set up so many characters and things, and then you just flush them down the toilet. You can't just say her parents are nobody. You can't just say from The Force Awakens that she's so strong in the Force without having any training. That doesn't make any sense. I can understand if she had spurts of really powerful moments of using the Force, but not to be that trained with a lightsaber when she first fights, Kylo Ren learning how to do mind tricks and stuff like that. Like, she really is a Mary Sue. She's just overpowered because she's overpowered, and the only explanation is that she's overpowered and she's the heroine, so that's it. And that doesn't work for me. Like, in the original movie, you saw Luke develop, and, he was clumsy, got hit by the little blast droid, um, and made mistakes and had development. You can't just have a character that just basically is badass from the get go. That doesn't make any sense. That makes absolutely no sense. You know. Um, but anyway, moving on from that. Another problem that I had with this installment, which was just a really big nuisance for me, because one of the characters I absolutely fell in love with The Force Awakens was Maz Kanata. Um, and I thought her character was so interesting. The fact that she's force sensitive, the fact that there's a deleted scene on the Blu-ray where she brings down the wall, the ceiling on top of the stormtroopers, and that was cut. I can't find that scene anywhere. I had to pick up the Blu-ray just so I can see it, because that's amazing. Because the Star Wars universe is not known for going into just force sensitive. It's like, Jedi and Sith. That's all there is. They don't want to expand on the fact that other people can use the Force, and I thought that was awesome that they finally went into that. Same type of thing with Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One, which I still 100% believe that he is Force sensitive, because otherwise there's no point for him having a kyber crystal. The fact that he could sense, what was her name? Oh God, Jin. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm also sick, so bear with me here. Um, Jin Urso, I think was her name. Um, and that last scene where he walks through all of the stormtroopers blaster fire. I mean, I get it. You can get lucky, but that's like beyond lucky. Like, maybe he can't really use the Force, but I totally believe he can, to somewhat extent, feel it and sense it around him. Maybe he can't actively use it, but he can kind of use it as an intuition, where he has like a sense of like, okay, this is where I should walk, telling him like, hey, slow down, speed up. There's someone to your left. There's someone to your right. So I think that with the kyber crystal and with his enhanced senses, being blinded, that he can see everything in his mind, I think that all works together. And that's why he says, I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. I think it's a combination of his physical skills and the tiny little speck of Force sensitivity that he might have. Going off of that and back to The Last Jedi, one of the things I did like from the film was the fact that Luke retconned midichlorians. Now, a fact that I was recently kind of made aware to, because I haven't watched the prequels in a while, is technically, if you watch Episode 1, Qui-Gon Jinn doesn't actually ever say that midichlorians are the Force. Midichlorians are just actually the cells that create life, and people with a higher count are just more attuned to to the Force in general. They can feel it, they can sense it more. So midichlorians were never the Force, and I think a lot of fans got that confused, and me myself being one of them. But I really thought that was cool where Luke said, he's like, what? He's like, you think the Force is just some magic essence that just, a bunch of old Jedi or, old guys in robes, can use? He's like, no, it's like anybody can use the Force. And I was like, wow, two huge, unbelievable thumbs up. Like that's so amazing, because that totally explains everything. Lucas had said from the beginning, the Force, is like, a religion, a cult that anyone can tap into, and it's just on, a matter of their beliefs and their dedication and how strong that they can be in it. It's not like you're just born with magic like a superhero. So, I thought that was really awesome, that he dialed that back. Also going on word with, actually, I'm sorry, I never got to my full point with Maz Kanata. Kind of lost track there for a second. But yeah, with Maz Kanata, she is a really amazing character. The fact that she somehow had Anakin's lightsaber at her, bar, hideout, whatever, hotel type of place that it was. And the fact that she uses, her powers and stuff. That's a character that you should have put so much more development into, because of the story of, well, how did she get the lightsaber? Um, you know, what else can she do with the Force and stuff like that? How does she know Han and Chewie? There's so much that could have been expanded on there. And in The Last Jedi, she's just relegated to this little hologram scene where she's flying around in a jetpack and shooting things. And I mean, just what a loss! What a loss for Ryan and Disney and Lucasfilm to just sweep under a Force sensitive under the rug and be like, oh no, we don't want to go with that because it's just a story about Skywalkers and Jedi and Sith, and that's just a huge missed opportunity. She's an awesome, awesome character. So anyway, moving away from that, I also thought that Rose, she didn't really work at all in this film. From the moment that I saw her, she was just really, really annoying. I think that she should have just been a once and done type character where, yeah, you could have gotten away with the joke that she was a fangirl for Finn and stuff and just let it end at that. I think her joining the rebellion and stuff, like, I get that she was the sister of the other girl that sacrificed herself in the beginning of the movie, and I honestly don't really have a problem with the fact that gravity worked in that ship, and it shouldn't have, because it's space, because, I mean, there's been so many times in the other Star Wars movies where, that they haven't been floating around in their space cruiser. So why bring that up now? That's a moot point. How do you know they don't have gravity dampeners that can produce artificial gravity? I mean, if that's the biggest point, that's a waste of time. That's ridiculous. But the Cando Bite scene with the casino and everything, I thought it was misused. I really thought that in this scene, this is a perfect time to introduce Lando. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have Lando Calrissian make a cameo in this, or even with Billy D. Williams, you could have someone who looks like a younger version of him, or an older version of him, or whatever, a stand-in, someone that looked close, because it's a casino. He's a gambler, like at the end where Luke gives him the dice, which is how Han won the Millennium Falcon or whatever. There's such a story to go in there. What better place to find Lando at than at a casino, instead of doing this, hackneyed story with Rose, who's just a super hyperactive fangirl that kind of reminds me of like Tamara's Never Seen from like Channel Awesome, so her attitude, Rose, I mean, not Tamara, but her attitude is just really super fucking annoying and serves no purpose in the film. The whole dialogue between that serves no purpose. And, it was just really SJW, where they're forcing political views down your throat about, the rich and the poor. And I mean, I kind of get that to an extent, but again, that's not what I go to see Star Wars for. And I just think Rose is a terrible character. I think I'd have much rather seen Finn, interacting with Poe or being on a different mission, by himself. So Rose was completely unnecessary, an absolute waste of everybody's time. I don't care how bubbly or cute or fun she was. She didn't fit the movie. It was like somebody at a Comic-Con that just suddenly was like, "Oh, hey, I'm part of your space adventures now." And it's like, no, you're not. You're not. You get a little cameo, and that's it. You're totally not just part of the space adventures. No. Again, moving on from that, some other problems that I also had with the film, and this is probably the biggest problem I have with the film in general, is Snoke. Like, what the fuck? You build up this super evil bad guy that people don't know whether he was Darth Plagueis or not. He's been around for like 1,000 years. He's insanely powerful with the dark side, yet he's not a Sith. He's training Kylo Ren. And, the fact that he's like 7 feet tall, and in The Force Awakens, people thought he was like 50 feet tall. And he's just really, really cool. And he uses like some light side powers and is mainly using the dark side powers. And he's supposed to be more powerful than Vader and Palpatine combined. And then you just kill him. And then there's no explanation of where he came from, or what his plans are, or why he's doing any of this, or how he found Kylo Ren, or how he got his powers, or why he isn't just a straight up Sith, or why he has those marks on his head, or why he's 7 feet tall, and it's just, oh yeah, well, I guess the last couple of movies needed a really, evil bad guy, and Kylo Ren is okay, but, Snoke really filled that role of like the ominous, creepy bad guy, and then helped to move the story along. I definitely like the fight with the Praetorian guards, although I gotta say the choreography seemed off. Like so many times when they were fighting, they like held their weapons like, ugh, and like waited for the next attack, and I'm like, really? I'm like, this is so unbelievable. Like they'd be moving way faster in battle. Like you wouldn't be stopping and waiting. So like that was just poorly done. The scene was cool, but I mean, just they really needed to finesse that out more. And I think they might have been in a rush for time, getting the film out. And you know, Ryan obviously didn't know where he was going with this. He's just throwing bits and pieces. Like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. Let's have him do this. That's funny. This works. Da da da. And when you put it all together, it's like when you have a jigsaw puzzle and you have those pieces that don't fit, and you take a hammer and you hammer them in so it fits, and you use glue, and then you're like, there, I got the jigsaw puzzle together. I couldn't figure out where to put these pieces, but at least all the pieces in this box finally made a picture, but the picture makes no sense. And that's my problem that I have with The Last Jedi, is it doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense with Leia, where when I first saw that scene, I'm seeing her out in space, and I'm like, oh man, this is really sad, but what a nice send-off that she'll, die a hero, in space, and then all of a sudden that doesn't happen because apparently Leia's God and can survive the vacuum of space for, like more than 10 to 20 seconds, even though there's ice forming on her hands, and flies back to, to the spaceship, which I don't really care about the scene about the airlock because I just imagine they did that in the next scene, just cut away. So, stuff like that with the real world physics, I don't care about that so much in Star Wars. You don't need to explain that. But you do need to explain when a character like that, especially when a real world character, Carrie Fisher, passed away, that did her no respect in the movie like that. You should have done it to where, her character also gracefully dies, and the Star Wars universe would have loved that. They would have loved that. Wow, what a fitting tribute to Carrie that she died in a big battle, and that would have been awesome. But instead, you made her look like a jackass when she was flying through space like Superman, and I mean, just what the fuck? That's just absolutely ridiculous. I get that she has the same powers that Luke does. Maybe they're not as strong, in the expanded universe, blah, blah, blah. She's learned how to use that, but in canon, no one's ever taught her how to do any of this stuff. And yeah, maybe it was a gut reaction, like she was just scared and used her emotions to use the Force, but still, it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense with her in that ridiculous gown flying through space. It was just absolutely stupid. It was really, 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 really stupid scene. So there's that. Other problems that I had with the movie as well. I'm trying to think here. You'd think there would be more, right? Well, one of my other largest problems, I had a really big problem with the ending. I didn't mind that Luke, again, sorry, I'm sick, so I'm trying not to sneeze right now, so bear with me. I just really wanted to get this video out, and sick or not, sorry. So hope I don't sneeze during this, but if I do, forgive me, bear with me. um, with Luke, and, he does that force projection battle with Kylo Ren, and, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. I didn't have a problem with the fact that Luke died. That was totally cool. What I did have a problem with, and I didn't even have a problem with the fact that he was a projection and Kylo Ren poked his lightsaber through it, whatever. Hey, showing some amazing force powers that nobody's ever seen before. But I did have a problem where when he goes to die, he's so exhausted from using the Force that he falls off the rock and his face is real red and, it looks like he's having a heart attack or whatever. And okay, that's believable. But it didn't make any sense when they cut back, like 2 minutes later, after him looking like he was just going to collapse on the ground and die. Then all of a sudden, because he goes from like, and then he comes back and he's like, oh, I'm cool. Caught my breath, I'm fine. And so he's not flushed anymore. He looks okay now. And then he sits on the rock and just decides to die. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, again, I understand it makes a poetic scene. He's looking at the kind of twin sons of Tatooine, sorry. But why not just have him die right there, where, he clutches his chest and passes out? Because at least that's more believable. It's not believable if you're looking like you're going to die 1 second, and then when you do die, you look totally healthy, like, oh, hey, that passed. I got my breath back. So I would have much rather had him either A, die like that, or B, die where he was killed in an actual lightsaber battle with Kylo Ren. Because that would have been cool. That would have really, really meant something. If he had cut him in half, then he would have died for a purpose. It sets up episode 9 where, Rey steps in to avenge the death of her, her master and stuff like that. And that would be really cool. Also, I kind of had a problem with Yoda in this movie. I was really, really glad to see him back. But he was a little too wacky and goofy. So I think he's already done enough disservice in the prequels. And what most people don't realize is when you see him in The Empire Strikes Back and he's acting so wacky and goofy, he's testing Luke's patience. But from that point on, you never really see him act wacky and goofy again. Like, he wouldn't crack Luke in the head with his cane, and just start cracking jokes. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it makes his character seem ridiculous and not like the wise, sage Jedi Master that we've all known to come and love. I love the fact that he was able to use the Force lightning and stuff like that. But again, I really think, that was out of character. So I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, the other major problem that I had with this movie too was with Admiral Holdo or whatever her name was, the chick with the purple hair. Again, if I don't remember everything, I've only seen the movie once because I was so sick to my stomach of it. I didn't want to go see it a second time, so ugh. But I mean, she was just like this feminist social justice warrior, with her purple hair, and was just like trying to purport this agenda that no one really cared about. Like, female power, we don't care about your mutiny, we're women, we're going to do it because we're women. We don't like things in politics right now, and da-da-da. And it's like, whoa, what does that have to do with anything? Like, just tell the people on board the spaceship your plan, and you could have solved everything with that mutiny. A mutiny would have never happened. It didn't make any sense to hide your plan, and the whole low-speed space cruise didn't make any sense when the Empire can track light speed. I mean, they could have just blown them up a million times over, and I honestly don't see why they didn't. So the chase didn't really make any sense. And then aside from that, I'm trying to think if there was anything else that really, grinded my gears, let's say. There is one other thing, but I can't honestly really remember it at this time. But overall, the Last Jedi was just a mockery of a Star Wars film. By itself, it's an okay movie, but it does not belong in the Star Wars universe. It should not be Star Wars canon. It does not make sense. The characters were not developed. It made absolutely no sense that you didn't find out who Rey's parents are, that we found no backstory about Snoke. There were characters that were unneeded, like Rose and, the gambler, Benicio del Toro, JJ, I think was his name. in the casino scene where he just so happens to be able to, he's not the right guy, but he can pop open the lock. Ridiculous, stupid, made no sense. Um, and just a lot of missed opportunities. They should have, if you're going to kill off Snoke, I mean, I think they should have maybe had Luke fight Snoke or something. Luke and Rey fight Snoke at the end or something, or don't kill him off until episode 9. There's just so much more that could have gone into and was just an absolute waste. And instead, the movie that we're left with is, blue milk from some crazy nipple alien, a terrible casino scene, Luke flicking a lightsaber over his shoulder, terrible jokes, no backstory on anyone, and a death of a major character that didn't really need to happen and didn't progress the plot. So you walk away knowing less than you did from The Force Awakens. And as a Star Wars fan, that really pisses me off. And it's not just because, oh, there are new films. You just don't like new films. That's absolutely incorrect, because Rogue One came out, and I loved that. The Force Awakens was okay. That was passable. Just barely passable. But no, it's not just because I'm an old Star Wars fan. Oh, I'm grumpy. Oh, like all these new Star Wars things, and you kids with your iPhones and your blah, 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 blah. No, it's just the story doesn't make any sense. It's a pile of shit. I mean, it's not directed well, and it doesn't make any sense. And anybody who knows anything about cinema knows that you build a story for where you bring in characters, you develop them, then you have a conclusion at the end, and that's not happening in this series. So Rian Johnson's apparently on crack and doesn't know how to direct or to storyboard or screenwrite to save his life, and there should be a restraining order placed against him in the Star Wars franchise. And it just made absolutely no sense. I mean, I went into this movie wanting answers, and I don't think that's unreasonable. I wouldn't have cared if Rey's parents were junkers, but you should have set something up like that to prove that. Prove your point. Prove that you're not just bullshitting. Because in the first one, you see a ship flying away, so have something more to that, to where you're just like, oh, well, it's too much work to write actual story about that. So, yeah, your parents, they were just crackheads. Well, what the hell? I mean, there should be a little more story behind that. Like, maybe they needed to pay off gambling debts, Maybe they were on the run from someone, being chased down, and they had to leave her on, J- J- uh, Jakku, That would make sense. And then the same thing with Snoke. You have to go into backstory about that. You can't just have all these dumb, crappy jokes and no character development and just random scenes that don't make any sense. Although I gotta say, I do like at the end with the young kid, and he force pulls the broom over to him. That was kind of neat. I'm saying there's more force sensitives in the galaxy, so that was neat. But overall, a really, really big missed opportunity. Even with like those new AT-ATs that have like the gorilla claws that they drag along the ground. Why weren't they used more? Why didn't you get into a better fight with them and explain them, show them more? In the first Empire, you see those things and it's like, wow. And here it's like, oh, yeah, remember those? They're cool. We changed them a little bit. Bye. The hell? That makes no sense. Like, show how they get destroyed, show them destroying stuff, so... I don't know, man. I gotta say, I'm not very excited for episode 9 to come out, because I have just seen fuck up after fuck up with this new series. It doesn't make sense. Kylo Ren's not a very believable bad guy because he's too back and forth and whiny. Rey, we don't know anything about yet, and I think that's a pain in the ass, because in the original trilogy, you knew everything about Luke. In the prequels, you really learned a lot about Anakin. And then with these, it's like, oh yeah, there's Rey. She's a chick. Get over it. And that's what I feel like I'm being told with this movie. And it's like, okay, would you mind to go into a little bit more detail than that? So, I don't know. I just think they need to go back and watch a lot of movies, and not just Star Wars movies, and realize how you tell a story and how a saga should unfold. You know, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the old Star Wars films. You know, any good classic trilogies like that. Hell, go watch the Godfather series. You know, learn how to write a story, and you know, because it just doesn't make sense to set up all these plot points and then you just disregard them in the movie. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. That doesn't make any sense. It's like if you went to go watch another movie, like take RoboCop for example. The first one, they set up RoboCop, and then they come around with RoboCop 2, and now RoboCop, you know, is a bad rapping pimp with his baseball cap turned around backwards and subwoofers pop out of his arms, and he starts breakdancing and scratching vinyl records. You know, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should, and it doesn't make any sense. And people aren't just whining that, like, oh, you're trying new stuff, and that's what people are mad about. No, you tried a bunch of stuff that just didn't make any fucking sense. It made absolutely no sense. So that's what most fans are upset about, that when you go to such extremes, it no longer fits the flow or the feel of the movies anymore. And then that's the problem. You really have to go back, you know, JJ. I honestly hope he gets with the director, Gareth Edwards, I believe is his name, from Rogue One, and they get together and really bring this story back together for episode 9. So, hey guys, tell me in the comments down below what you thought of The Last Jedi, whether or not you're excited for episode 9 coming out, and the new Han Solo movie that's also supposed to be coming out. We're going to get a trailer for that Super Bowl Sunday, from what I've been hearing. So, you know, until next time, may the Force be with you.
Hey guys, if you like the video that you just watched, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. And if you do the Facebook and Twitter thing, follow me at #GameRetro. See you next time.